Hello and welcome to episode 43 of the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his three friends. We're recording this very early in the morning, so if we're bleary-eyed and crotchety, we apologise. Also, this is Manish's first ever agenda. Normally, I bully my way into it and others contribute, but Manish is a little bit more reserved. But this week, he stepped up and decided to take control of what has become a shambles. So we have got a Manish agenda. I quite like the look of it, actually. I like the shape of it. I like the feel of it. I like the smell of it.
Yes.
So we're going to begin with driving, the antidepressant that the others don't understand. I'm going to start with, it feels like a Neil thing to me to start with. Go on, Neil.
Well, I suppose this is a bit of my Jackanory, really, wasn't it? I think we all talk about this. This podcast could be called "Driving the Antidepressant," couldn't it? It's everything that we love, really. I think actually most people do understand this. There are some people that don't like driving, but we don't really like those people.
Who?
But even if it's not that conscious a thing, I think a lot of people do like that third space. They do like that relaxing space. I think we all refer to it often as the place of peace, the place for thinking, the place for, frankly, remembering stuff. It's a good place to sort of catch your to-do list up in your head with the reality of life, doesn't it? Because that all gets out of sync and a lot going on, and it's a place where you can catch up with yourself, really. In that respect, I think it's a bit of a selfish space, but it's selfish, but therefore not, because you're on your own, aren't you? So you haven't got to apologise to anyone that you want to listen to some weird podcast of four blokes talking about car magazines in the 1970s, so you can do things without pressure or being criticised. You can listen to the naff music, whether it be REM or Radiohead or Poodle Rock or whatever it may be. And I suppose for me, it's always that time of movement, isn't it? I've got a bit of a funny brain sometimes, and I it's a place where maybe my heart rate drops a bit, and I get a little bit of reflective time. And the fact that I'm moving is lovely. Actually, I prefer the journey than getting there. It's always a bit disappointing when you get there, isn't it? I normally want to leave.
That's a philosophy for our times, Neil.
And I know I bang on a bit too much about it, but I do think we all got a bit shattered in places that we don't really know through COVID, and I think I'm certainly trying to put all that back together a bit, but I think we're more at peace on our own sometimes, which I think is good and bad. I'm certainly excited about Journey. I'm going to Classic Le Mans next week, and I was chatting to my mates about it. And the best bit about it actually is not Classic Le Mans. It's going there. And when you get there, it's like, tick, happy to stay there for a couple of hours. I'd be happy to drive back home again. So it's a weird thing, but I think we all adore that space, don't we? And I'm sure in many better words, you guys will be able to express it similar. But yeah, long live the car.
I think, I obviously wholeheartedly agree with all of that. I'm going to pass over to Manish now, but I think there's a medical element to this that we need to touch on, which is the idea that increasingly large chunks of the population medicate for this condition. No one should ever sniff or snigger at depression. It's a terrible thing. But the idea that there's something out there that's got four wheels that might actually act as some kind of medication is quite important. Manish, I'm sure you have more to say on that.
It's funny, I picked this very much thinking Neil was going to say very much what he's just said, that this is a sort of safe space. And we've touched upon sort of male mental health a lot. Few very nice comments in this pod are basically about that, how we help people just through our old fartiness, through whatever they're going through. And I mean, it's probably not a very nice story, but I studied psychology for my part two. One of the best things about Cambridge back in the day, although most medical schools do it now, is that in your third year, you can study what you want. And I was very interested in psychology, all kinds of psychology. But depression was something, I think looking back on it, there's an obvious reason why I was very interested in depression. I think I was a bit depressed, actually, 2 or 3 times, properly depressed through my undergraduate years. And I think lots of things contribute to that. Feeling a bit overwhelmed by a course, being away from home. I didn't drink before I went to university, and alcohol's a massive depressant, especially over sort of, long periods of time. And there was a scientist called Seligman, and he did a very, very difficult to describe experiment on dogs. And it was called the experiment Seligman's learned helplessness. And what he did was he got a room and he divided it in 2. And he put a dog in the room where you could electrocute the dog through the floor enough so that it hurt the dog. And what he would do is he would put a light up to tell the dog that the electric shock was coming. And the dog would quickly learn to jump onto the other side of the room. But then what he did was he made the light random. So the poor dog saw the light, stayed where it was, got electrocuted, sometimes jumped, got electrocuted. Very quickly, the dog became depressed, withdrawn, wouldn't eat.
Where is this Seligman? Can we find him and have a little word with him?
Well, he wrote a very long piece on how he felt terrible about doing this, but, it was a very important study. They looked actually at some of these dogs were then sacrificed. They looked at their brain chemicals. I mean, this is sort of proper hardcore science. The reason why I mention this is because it's that lack of autonomy that sometimes drives people into this dark place and this mood. When you feel you've got no real control over your life, when you think, and then people went on to expound that real depressions are what they call internal, stable, and global. So it's all my fault. It's never going to change. And it's about everything that I do. So it's not just about work. Oh, my wife hates me. Oh, everybody thinks I'm this and that. And these lead to very dark periods in time. And now I think on top of that, people are understanding that there's a sort of big chemical nature to some depressions. Some people get so depressed they cannot literally get out of bed. They just cry all the time. But as Chris just said, people are relying on, for the lighter depressions, which if you imagine is a bit like a yo-yo, you drop it down, you should cycle out of it. And there are lots of things that you can do to cycle out of it, not drink, go for walks, do something healthy. And I think driving is a beautiful example of something that you can do because you have that autonomy. You have a safe space. You put on the music that you want to put on. You go somewhere that you want to go. You don't, as Neil says, you don't have to go there to go and do anything. You can just go there, turn the car around and come back. But you have this beautiful, I was just, that my late drive to Thruxton, I didn't put the radio on. I didn't listen to any music. I just drove the car and just enjoyed the sound of the engine, enjoyed the countryside, enjoyed just not being distracted, enjoyed looking at the dashboard, enjoyed looking at that little prancing horse. And it was a wonderful feeling. I was really stressed when I left because I was so goddamn late, but I was just so happy when I arrived. So I think there's a really big element when we drive and we drive alone of autonomy, of our safe space. And it's a bit like this when we talk, isn't it? This feels like, even with 150 people in the room, it feels like a safe space. I can say what I want. I'll either have the piss taken out of me or I won't, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because, what do I amount to? One in 8 billion people. I mean, it doesn't matter, but it sort of does too. So I'm with Neil. Driving, safe space, good antidepressant.
And I think, Manish, the lesson you learned on Friday of not troubling the electrical loads of your 456 on your journey to Thruxton probably contributed significantly to you actually completing that journey in that car.
I was 1 milliamp from not making it.
Every day is a school day. I mean, this is a really interesting question, isn't it? And I think you guys have talked very eloquently about why, and I think it's absolutely true. The evidence that it is true was very, very clear in our wonderful gathering at Thruxton on Friday, where I was trying to think of a way of describing what it was.
A track day.
We didn't. Well, I mean, those are its contents. I mean, and we started with a sort of a reasonably. It's almost a play on words of that old telly show that you were once on yourself, Chris. We didn't try to be ambitious, but it did end up being very, very special.
We tried to sell Arctic spec gilets on the hottest day of the year.
And we did sell some.
Ambitious thing we've ever done, or I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, we did sell some. Nothing's impossible. And the mood on the day was lovely. And it didn't matter really what people brought to drive. It didn't matter the background or the perspectives they brought to sit in our audience. It was okay to be nerdy. And it was okay not to be cool. There were some very cool people there and some very cool machinery. But whilst I proudly sit in Philistine's corner of the music bit of our podcast, and I proudly sit in the most uncool part of what we do. I'm just not cool. I'm just too autistic for that, and I can't. It doesn't. I understand it. I'd like to be it, but I just.
Uncool is cool though.
Well,
Exactly.
Only if you know that.
It is.
And I sort of don't. I don't think I trip over it a lot. And it was just wonderful to talk to people about how the act of, telling the stories of how they drove there, watching people drive on the day. It's okay not to be cool, and it's actually celebrating the nerdiness of what we like about it. And every journey there was just sort of wonderful. So I think Neil is right in what he said right up front, which is that I think more people understand it than I thought might understand it. And one of the things, and I noticed it last night. We had a dinner last night, a Motorsport UK board meeting dinner. But we're at RAC Club right now, about to have our sort of summer board meeting. And there's a bunch of people. I mentioned it to the chaps last night. There's a bunch of mates I have down in Cornwall who are sort of somebody else's mates, and I've sort of tagged along. And they're very, very interesting, bright, cultured, educated, extraordinary people. Guti, Angus, David, and Ben. And they're not really into cars. They haven't really been into cars. And they probably look at me and thinking, why does that bloke spend all the money he hasn't got on a car? But they've listened to how we describe cars and driving. And they really get it. They've really become quite sort of interested in and I think find it quite thoughtful. So there is a future for the car. We talked about this at the podcast on Friday. There is a future for the car in our world. And I think there will always remain a future for motoring and independence rather than everything in a mass. So I feel actually very positive about continuing to be able to enjoy what we do. I think it's wonderful. It's a great question, Manish.
Obviously, you chaps have covered most things here. I don't want to repeat, but I have a theory about the origins of this. Ask yourself this question. How many people, young couples, have you come across who've just had a child, who don't like driving, but they immediately resort to taking their child out in a car to put them to sleep? I think I think the notion of car as safe space, of place that can send you off to sleep if you're a baby, starts much earlier in our lives than obviously we're ever aware. But the number of people that resort to saying, yeah, the only way to get him or her to sleep is to pop them in the back of the car and go around the block or go for a drive. It's almost universal when you meet people but you forget that was you. So I think there's something really, our relationship with this motor car thing starts sooner than we realize. And I think it's cemented earlier as well. It is that you are, and it's so logical in a world that can look unkind and scary and quite tricky. There's this hermetically sealed object that's quieter, that can get you away from places that are difficult. I mean, good God. I mean, Freud must have written about the motor car. Surely he overlapped it, didn't he? So he must have spotted this and gone, that thing there's a bit different. That's a little capsule. It's not a car.
Yes.
So yeah, I think you're all right. And for me, it is the antidepressant, and I sometimes don't use it that way. Maybe we should do that and be a bit. You don't have to go and put the Prodigy on and go and scratch around at 11/10. That's not what you have to do. But maybe sometimes it's to use it, as Neil pointed out, as journey, or to go and to use it as a conduit to meet someone or something that will make you feel better. But I'm no secret about the fact that my mental health has been absolute shambles for many years. But I wobble along. I've never done the medication thing because I'm scared of it, because I know what I'm like. But the antidepressant that works is the motor car, alongside taking advice from clever people like you lot as well. Don't drink so much, get up early, exercise. Getting up early. Neil Clifford said to me a while ago, he said, how many unsuccessful people do you know that get up really early? Answer that one. So, but the motor car is at the centre of it all, and I still believe that I remember my mother saying, "Oh, we used to stick you in a pram on the rear parcel shelf of the whatever it was." And I'm thinking that wasn't very safe. So it's a miracle. It's a miracle any of us bloody survived. I remember Justin Bell talking about his old man sticking him on the rear shelf of a 275 GTB and going off to races in Europe. We've all got our versions of it, haven't we? Some of them are more exotic than others.
275,
Yeah, some of them are more exotic than others. But still the same principle. It's basically we're all in this together. We're safe from the outside world in this thing until we hit a wall at 120. Right. On that note, let's move on. So, photos. Next agenda point. The prettiest post-1990 car. I mean, I just don't even know where to begin. This is, again, posted by Manish. And also, it's quite a selfless one from Manish because he's obsessed with wedges. So he's sort of taken the wedge out of the equation here. I'm going to hand over to Neil Clifford.
God. I really struggled not to have a list here. This was really, really hard to get down.
I've gone the other way.
What, you've got a long list?
No, I've just got one.
Come on, three.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll do my.
You do your list.
I had a list of 10, but I'll talk about 3 or 4, and then I'll end up with the one. So my first one was 993 C2S. We need a special 911 podcast to talk about all elements of the ins and outs of what's the best, what's the prettiest. But I think that is a really stunning car, in a lovely colour. I mean, it's pretty unbeatable, really. But then I went Ferrari. Yeah, I think it is. I know it's modern pretty, it's aggressive pretty, but I adore the LAF. Last of Luca, all of the elements of that. I think it's a stunning thing. But actually, my conclusion, which is a bit stupid of me, really, because I do own one of these and it's for sale, but I shouldn't sell it, is the Bentley Continental T. Because I think it's where old meets new. It's more old than new. Certainly when you drive it, it's more old than new. But it's so muscular, but not aggressive really. It's the proportions are fantastic. One can argue you go Conti R. Alan Clark would certainly say R, not T, and you'd get the Mulliner, so you get the big engine, but not the narrower body. But to me, the Conti T, the wider arches, it's a sort of 747 SP.
Yeah.
It just looks slightly different. And,
well described. My ears pricked up then. Yeah.
747 SP was my favourite plane, is my favourite plane probably. And I think this is the four-wheeled version of it. It's gorgeous from the front, and when you walk around the back, you're like, that's just the best angle. Then you walk around the back, you're like, oh my god, the back's even better. So I would go Bentley Continental T, 1999 to 2003.
Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Manish, and I'm going to preface it again by saying this is coming down to the definition of the word pretty versus beautiful to me. So, or impactful. So, Manish, where are you going with pretty?
Actually, I think that's spot on. I love this question. It's actually, we've all been creating this long agenda. I love this question because I think this was all about what is pretty. Pretty for me is small. There's something about, if you say pretty girl, she probably isn't. I don't think there are too many 6'2" supermodels who are quote unquote pretty. They might be beautiful, they may be elegant, but pretty it's something to do with being compact, with all your proportions being exactly right, nothing being too big, nothing
like
needs
all
to.
Of us, Manish.
Yes, as we were, yes, exactly. So I think this is the solution to this is going to be a mid-engined car, actually. I think the solution to this is a mid-engine car that's the proportions are just right. She's going to be a bit smaller. So if we were having this about, say, pre-80s, I would say a 296 is pretty. Ferrari Dino. She's a pretty car, right? But I think that the prettiest car came down to a fight for me between the F355 and the 458. And I spent a lot of time staring at those two cars. Which one is prettier? It's really, really tricky. And in the end, I decided actually it was the 458 over the 355. And the reason I decided that, because I think the 458 is she was unique. She just came out of nothing. She was a pure creation, whereas the 355 was a 348. Lots of things were changed in her. So in terms of pretty for me, a 458, that nothing existed like it before. I was having a look, and there are so many lines. Someone once talked to me through the McLaren MP412C versus the 458. He was an architect. And he said, this is the difference between Ron and a Ferrari. He said, if you look at an MP412C, he said, all the lines are resolved. There's no tension in this car at all. And he said, especially if you look at a 458 from the side, you'll see there's an arc in the middle before it meets the rear haunch, before it meets the front haunch, and they're not connected. And he said, that is creating tension in you, and that is pretty. There's a real statement here. So the answer for me is the Ferrari 458. Pick the one you like, but that base model, it's timeless and beautiful, but it's pretty.
I think I agree.
Agree with that.
I wonder what's the relationship between pretty and not having big air intakes on the large volumes of metal or carbon fiber. The moment you start to open a car up and make it more porous, I think you make it more aggressive, and maybe notions of prettiness are reduced. Discuss. On to Chris Cooper.
That's a question, isn't it? What do we mean by pretty? And interesting, in the Ferrari example, for me, for sort of all the reasons we said by what we think we mean by pretty, the 355 is a much prettier car than the 458. I think it's perfect. I think everything about it, and that opening scene of GoldenEye, that GTS, isn't that GTS 355 shape the prettiest shape? And I think there's something about delicacy. There's something about minimalism and the lack of sort of functional extremity, like a big gaping thing in the front of it to gopping air in. And that's not pretty. That's sort of functional. And I think the Conti T is an interesting example. I think the Conti T is stunning. And we could argue that, does it have all the characteristics of prettiness? And it's a bit like, what's your favorite child and what's your favorite dog? You just want to take all of them. I didn't have a list, but all the cars you've mentioned were on my list. But I promised that there would just be one. And the one I wrote down at 4:45 this morning was 993 C2S. Sorry, C2.
C2, yeah.
C2,
Okay.
not the S. I had an S, but actually when I see a C2 or a C4 with that little red band across the rear, which I quite like, I'd almost say the C4, not on the turbo alloys, the non-turbo alloys.
Yeah.
I think there's something now prettier and prettier about 993 C2 or C4. So if we do this next week, we should do this lots of weeks, pre-90, post-90. We'll always choose something slightly different, and that's the joy of it. But
there's a purity to C2 993, on the smaller wheels. Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? So for me, any 911 that's not got a long bonnet isn't pretty. I think they can be beautiful. I think they can be proportionally spot on, but they're not pretty cars to me. They're just like the C2S has got far too much haunch. It's like too butch at the back for me. So I've got a bit of a list here, and probably an unexpected winner, I would have thought. So here's some food for thought. The second generation Honda CRX, that short little thing, is such a pretty little car.
1990.
That meets all the criteria of pretty. Pretty should make you smile. Pretty maybe shouldn't make you feel lust, but it should make you almost want to cuddle it. Pretty is like almost paternal feelings towards a car.
It's not threatening.
No. BMW Z8 is a truly pretty car to me. I think it's proportionally bang on. The Mazda RX-7 that was they call it FD, which is that the one that was the last rotary thing they did. If you look at that car up close, it is absolutely gorgeous. It has curves that would shame most Ferraris.
Yeah, it's a cool car. That
really pretty piece of styling. I think the original Elise, when I first saw it, almost embodied pretty. I think it's stunning. There's two for me though, and they are totally different types of cars. And the unexpected one beats the other one for me. I think the Alfa 8C probably is the prettiest car I've seen in a long time. It's just amazing, and we know an individual that's trying to take control of the market at the moment, don't we?
Yeah.
But in my working life, the one car that when I first saw it in the flesh, I just thought, wow, they have knocked that out of the park. That's a pretty car. It's the 981 Boxster. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I think it's the best looking Porsche, apart from the Carrera GT, of the last 20 something years. There's something about it that's more feminine, and it is a pretty car. I know it's got intakes on the side, but it's not threatening. It never, even when they try and make GT4s of them and everything else, spiders and fancy ones, it's still a Boxster. But I think the 981 Boxster, partly because I think its predecessor was not a great. I think the 987 is not a great looking car. Sorry, Neil, but I think the 981 is just spot on.
Yeah.
So I'm going for that, which is weird against an 8C. But I keep seeing them around and thinking, oh, that's good. Like you see a dark midnight blue one with the right wheels.
The 8C is interesting, isn't it? There's something about the expectation, the idea of it creates. It sets its own bar really, really high. It was an obvious attempt, a deliberate and an ambitious and great attempt to produce a stunning, beautiful, modern Alfa. And somehow, because of that, it doesn't quite hit home for me. Objectively, it is absolutely stunning, but because there's something about its
Mr. Producer, can we please cut Mr. Cooper off for a while?
Why?
I can't. I just love the fact that either me or he are speaking on the subject of aesthetics. We should probably look at each other in the mirror and go, "What are we doing here?"
Speak for yourself.
Yeah,
That's really dumb.
There's not one bit wrong with that car visually.
I know that's why it's so interesting. Is objectively and visually there isn't, but in my head, I just sort of think, no, it's almost trying too hard. We'll come back to that subject. Can cars try too hard?
Yes, I think that's a good question.
Trying too hard. I'm going to move on now. This is a really good one now. Design and explain a new entry price Ferrari. I'm going to go to myself first.
Oh, you bastard.
First of all, this car weighs 850 kilograms.
Oh dear, that's light.
It has a list price probably about a quid under the current cheapest car, which is the 2.9. It's the Roma, isn't it?
Yeah.
It has a 2.9 litre normally aspirated V12. It only has a 2.9 litre engine because it just looks ridiculous on paper.
Yeah. I agree with that.
There's no need for it. It could be a 3, but 2.9.
I love that idea.
Yeah,
that's 2.9.
V12 2.9. Fuck.
V12 2.9 aspirated. It's a manual gearbox car, and it's of course called the Dino because every entry level Ferrari should be called the Dino.
Yeah.
There's no point the rest of us going now.
No. Okay. Ferrari is going to shut down the centre of Bologna to launch this car. It's going to rent every single restaurant and invite everyone significant there. And it's hiring to give the presentation for the car Luca Cordero de Montezemolo, who will present the car to the adoring public and journalists. I think it's a winner, personally. It's called the Dino. And I believe, I know they could make that car tomorrow. They could charge 10 million quid for it. But how cool would it be if they said, you know what, let's just reset this a bit. We've gone a bit too far down a certain route. We'll do this.
Where's the engine, Chris?
The engine is obviously a midships. It's out the back. It's a mid-engined V12. I'll go to Neil Clifford now.
Well, on the basis we've probably all got the same answer. So I'll just do 20 seconds of my notes. Okay, we're bringing back the Dino.
Yeah.
Basically.
So there's some small changes. It's a V6. Mine's a V6, but no turbos. This is normally aspirated. I've brought Pininfarina back to design it. Because, when they fired them, it all went a bit tits up, didn't it, really? I know we can't say that. Matthew, I still love you. Get me a 296 Aperta. GTS and GT, obviously. Manual only, obviously. 250 grand. No options. You can choose your colour.
Nice.
Choose your colour. None of the wanky carbon stuff. None of the extra, suddenly 250 has become 450 because I've got the carbon wheels and the carbon steering wheel, whatever. No options, colour only. We're making a lot of them. This isn't about elitism. This is about bringing Ferrari. This will double their share price or half it. Who knows what will happen?
I think it might be one of those. Yeah,
one of those. But you can only have it in non-metallic colours of the past. And clearly, we'd all be queuing up for one, wouldn't we? We'd all be, oh, Matthew, do you fancy lunch in Shepton Mallet? Do you fancy a ploughman's? Wouldn't it? Everyone would be out. It'd get so fat, Matthew, with the amount of lunches from all his customers. But yeah, I think we're all going to have different parts of bringing back the Dino, aren't we?
Let's find out, shall we? Let's go to Manish now.
Just trying to think what you could possibly add to that. I think there's only one thing to add to that. We have Luca launching this car for us, and we have him at the Cavallino, and he begins with, Manish, I know you are Indian, but this place should be Italian. It's designed by an Indian architect. I don't understand it. Well, they're going to have Indian food next.
He's obsessed with that, isn't he? He's obsessed with it.
It was ruined.
Well, I mean, I think that I mean that's a valid point. We're designing this very beautiful car to get back to the heart of what a Ferrari is. I'm going to slightly go with Mr. Harris in terms of the engine, though, because the original Ferrari, do you remember, it was a 1.5 litre V12. It was the Swiss watch of engines, and the idea of making a sub 3 litre V12, that is so sexy.
Yeah, good.
You could probably make it out of all kinds of lovely light things that rev incredibly beautifully and have electronics in them that stop the thing breaking down. I love it, but the only thing we got to do is we got to rebuild the Cavallino if we're going to launch this car with Luca. It's the only thing I'm adding.
Do you think there's
Can we just save some money and call it the Cavallino Tandoori?
Tandoori Aperta.
By the way, you know, no, Aperta all hours. The Tandoori Aperta all hours.
When you walk in there,
It's a drive-through. It becomes an Indian drive-through with a really low hatch.
just write Merg in front of everything on the menu.
Merg Pomodoro.
Yeah, only available in brown.
Now, Chris Cooper, you've been left with the hospital pass here because most bases have been covered. Give us something new.
So, it is the new Dino. We all thought it was the new Dino. And because it's the new Dino, it is a V6, not a V12. The 2.9 thing is really interesting. I agree with that because the 2.9 thing says the engineers and the commercial people behind it both agreed there was something more important about what the engine did and how it performed and how it fitted in the overall story than, or could we make it 3 litre because that sounds better? No, 2.9 litre sounds better for those reasons. The entry price bit is a bit interesting, isn't it? In 2024, the average ticket price of a new Ferrari was just over 400,000 euros. The average profit per vehicle of Ferrari last year was 110,000 euros. It's gone up from 70,000 euros 3 years before. So I think the thing I would add to this debate is the very principle of the need and desirability and argument for an entry-level Ferrari. Years ago, before Porsche had its real difficulties, sort of in the 80s, there was when the 911 was basically Porsche. In the UK, there was a famous quote, I presume from the person who was leading Porsche in the UK at the time. This has probably been 70s, 80s. When there was, probably 80s, there was a discussion about, well, where's your entry-level Porsche? These 911s are fantastic, but and the answer was, an entry-level Porsche is a second-hand Porsche. And I remember even as a little nipper at the time thinking, that sounds a bit disparaging and patronizing and sort of elitist. And maybe for lots of other reasons, it came home to roost. It wasn't a smart idea. So when you look at the numbers, you think they sold 13,000 vehicles. Last couple of years, they sold 13,000 vehicles. And you look at the share price, it's gone unbelievably well. But if there's one thing that Luca told everybody and taught everybody, and it might even be a line in a certain film that we might see sometime shortly, Ferrari is a dream. And Ferrari to continue to be a dream, it's got to pass through the generations, and there has got to be a greater possibility of accessing it. So I think the entry-level Ferrari has got to be cheaper. The economics have got to be different, would be our plea to Elkan and others. And the specification of it. I think the other thing I'd add specification, no bloody haptic switches.
They've gone.
Very good.
No black, shiny plastic.
They've gone. The new steering wheel in the special has got buttons. They're changing them all. They were very, very keen to tell me that when I was last there.
That's
which
good.
is good. Which is good
So
news.
that generation will be worth £1 million more now in the future because it'd be like the door handles on the McLaren that didn't work properly. They're now worth more because they're rare, aren't they?
Yeah. But haptic switches are still shit.
Oh God!
There's something charming about a door handle you got to juggle with. It's part of the love of a car. There's nothing charming about a haptic switch.
No.
Yeah.
My final word on the subject.
On it. Yeah. Okay, yes, I think we're in agreement there. So before we move on to our next segment, I just want a little recap from Thruxton. So there's one thing that did happen there, well, two things that I'm quite proud of. First of all, we managed to rouse the E46 330i track car that I bought last summer. I bought this from my very good friend Tony, who lives in Cornwall, in fact, one of my oldest friends. And he was, because his daddy was my daddy's friend, and I think his daddy's daddy was my daddy's daddy's friend. It goes back that long.
Wow.
Yeah, and his son Harry had this track car, and it was time to move it on. And I think a bit like a good cricket bat, if you can pass these things on through generations, or golf clubs, it's quite nice. Or a racing bike,
Yeah.
a racing bike. You get a drop handle racing bike that used to come from a friend, didn't you? Because they were growing into it. It's a little bit rough around the edges, but we got it going. And my son, don't speak about my children much, he turned up in this thing with a couple of rogue friends that sometimes accompany me on these adventures. And the car was, I have to say, a bit of a revelation. It was so good to drive. It's got a few mods to it. It's got this, it looks absurd. It's got sort of these riveted wheel arches onto it. And I took the opportunity to go out with Neil Clifford, my learned friend Neil Clifford. I'll tell you why I chose Neil Clifford, because Chris Cooper could already drive better than me, so he doesn't need me teaching him how to drive. And Manish was still driving in silence down the A303 quietly, looking at the voltage gauge on his 456. So he wasn't there. So Neil Clifford came out, and I thought, rather than demonstrating how to drive, I'd put Neil Clifford in the driver's seat, and I'd sort of offer him some tips. The results of that film you will see quite soon. But safe to say, it sounded great from where we were sitting because we had K&N intake noise seeping through the scuttle of the car, and it was great fun. So that is yet to come. And there are other little morsels that came from that day as well that we will release over time. Now, this is a really good one, and it's already been answered for me as well. So this one is, what is the best looking wing mirror? There are only two, and anyone else that says there aren't only two is lying. So let's move on. Let's go. I'm going to go straight back to Chris Cooper. I like.
There's only one. There's only one today. Tomorrow there'll be a different one.
Yep.
It's a bit like the prettiest car, and I often kind of go back to this. It's the first love and the first time you saw something like this that made an impression and it lasted. The first proper performance car I had, sort of contemporary, that I thought was grown up. I'd had my Renault 5 GT Turbo was amazing, and I still miss it. And my MR2 company cars, who thought that was a sensible idea? But it was my E36 M3 Evo.
Oh, that's a nice one.
The wing mirror on the M3 E36 Evo with those sculpted bits and the gap in it and so forth. And every time you got in the car or looked out or wound the window down to get a ticket for a car park, you saw that thing. And that has always lasted with me. It just, particularly when you wound the window down to get a ticket, you looked at the mirror and you did that little blip on the throttle where it had that little hesitation, a bit of induction and a bit of sort of, I don't know what, it probably in those days wasn't engineered in as a sort of a feature, a little sort of cough and splutter as you just squeeze the throttle, just a sort of, not a big whap on it like a sort of a thug, but just a little gentle ba-boom, ba-boom on the throttle as you opened it. That sound and that mirror, I think that's still, for all of those reasons, my favourite wing mirror.
It's a lovely mirror.
Also, and I always used to think that mirror was for Evos. It was on non-Evos as well, that mirror.
It was.
I thought it was for, but I remember thinking, did they have square mirrors on non-Evos? They didn't. They had that mirror as well. Manish, favourite wing mirror?
Came down to two, actually. One very affordable. I think the Vauxhall Vectra had the most amazing wing mirror. It was just genius. It looked like the alien's tail.
Yeah.
It started very small. It was 3 segments, little bit, got wider, and then this very blocky car that had, to my eyes, nothing particularly aesthetic about it. It had these organic Ridley Scott HR Geiger mirrors. I thought they looked great. But the winner, you may find this a bit boring, but has to be the Testarossa Monospecchio, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's
That
good.
single beautiful mushroom growing out of halfway up the windscreen. That is a design statement. I've yet to see that beaten. Yet to see that beaten.
Yeah.
No, Clifford.
This is you're all bloody wrong, by the way. But it's really hard. This the runner-up for me is the 928 GTS Cup mirror,
Yeah.
because that era of the Cup mirror,
Yeah.
was it factory as he put them on, you know you know what I mean? The 964. Oh, I don't think that had cups. Well, he's changed those mirrors.
Cups and teardrops.
Cups and teardrops. And, and then everyone did it. And then everyone tried to revert back to the flags and the D90 wheels, because actually it was cooler on 964. And now, if it's still the original wheels and mirrors, it's worth 5 or 10 grand bloody more. But that cup mirror that was at factory on the 928 GTS, I adore that mirror. I adore that car, actually, to look at, not to drive, frankly, but to look at. Probably is bloody better than the Conti T. So I've changed my mind already on the previous.
Yeah, I've just realised that I've got the wrong one as well.
But come on, 288 GTO.
Yeah, very beautiful.
I'm fortunate enough to know a couple of super cool dudes that own those cars, and it is, if you own whatever it's called, the Big Five. If you own F40, F50, 288, LaFerrari, Enzo, the 288 is the cool one. It is the one, because it's not flashy. It's not shouting. It's not shouting like all the others, really, of, look at me, I'm a bit richer than you. It's just fucking cool, the 288, because to 95% of people, it's a 308. But if you know about those wide arches, if you know about those mirrors, which are quite ridiculous mirrors, or if you know about those big, gorgeous exhaust sticking out the back, or the engine sitting low at the back, or whatever it may be, I think that mirror, that photograph, hopefully we can put it up, of Mick Jagger picking up his 288 GTO at Maranello, with those huge stalk of a mirror sticking out to get your vision past those amazing arches. I think that to me is an unbeatable mirror.
That story about the 288 GTO drive home, Ron Stratton, Car Magazine.
I've got it.
Still my favourite.
Getting to know the GTO.
Still my favourite.
On the front cover.
Yeah.
Optional air conditioning.
Yeah.
Really?
Getting to know the GTO. So, obviously, lots of interesting discussion there. Clearly, you've all got it wrong, but I've got a little bit of a list here. So, objectively, the LaFerrari has the best wing mirror for me.
It's a great mirror.
It's got everything. It's got theatre. It works. It's somehow, if you concentrate, you think that should ruin the way this car looks, but somehow it makes it look better. It's like looking at wing mirrors on superbikes. They shouldn't work, but a Panigale's wing mirror on the right Panigale somehow works. I don't know how it works, but I'm not going to choose that. I've got a thing about German. I think the Germans do wing mirrors, because I think it's a way, because they like to play up to the way they're viewed, they're stereotype viewed throughout the world. That's their area of expression. They tend to make quite staid cars, but sometimes they go a bit wacky with the wing mirrors, and I love that. So I think the asymmetrical mirrors on an early W124, the cauliflower ear mirror, like that one, it's like that. I love that. Which German went, yes, we have a small one there. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just so cool.
it's
I
so
just love
cool.
it. Like, remember, so my runner-up is actually the E21 BMW. So if you're a nerd about E21s, the early cars had a single silver mirror, but the facelifts had this black plastic mirror that was integrated into the A-pillar. And it looked much more modern. And I remember my daddy coming home with his first facelift car because he was so mean. The standard 323i came with one. And it had one. It honestly looked like it was straight off Star Wars to me. It looked like a sort of shield, like it was like sticking out the side of the car that was just batting people off. So if you can find me a facelift single mirror E21 photo, anyone, it's like the kid in me was like, that's cool. But I still think the best of all of them is the E39 M5 mirror.
It's like a cup mirror, really.
But it's just so well integrated, and I just love the fact that it was part of that. Isn't it, to refer back to what Neil said, if you know, you know. If you saw that wing mirror in the distance, you're like, I'm not tangling with him.
Yeah.
I'm leaving him well alone.
Yeah.
I'm leaving him well alone. And you'd see it, but sometimes you'd see it before the ride height. Sometimes you'd see it before the quatre échappement, the M. You'd see, that E39 M5 mirror is just the apex for me. I just think it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a very pretty mirror.
Okay. I have to remember my agenda now. Sorry, managers. Invent a car event.
Ooh, this is a good one.
Mine's unbeatable here.
You say that. You haven't heard mine.
Okay. Well, let's start with your. No, you went first last, Chris. So let's go. Let's start with Manish.
I thought that this, you really can have a bit of fun with this. I remember the first time I went to the Goodwood Revival, and there were sort of three wonderful elements to it for me. One was that people got into the spirit of it. Whether they dressed up or not was kind of irrelevant. Everything about that day was about people who were willing to just go with it for a day, whether they went into a bookshop tent or watched something very, very quick or dressed up. And there was an atmosphere to it which it was just conducive to chatting to people, whether you knew them or not. You saw someone looking at a car, you just start chatting to them. So I love the idea of doing something a bit retro. I love that idea. And I love the idea of dressing up in a retro way, if you want to, at my event. So I would, and I'll tell you where I'd like to do this event. I'd like to do this event at Brands Hatch. I would like to do an 80s retro F1 weekend at Brands Hatch every year. And I think you have to arrive in an 80s car, preferably a Ford Granada 2.8. I don't mind whether it's an estate or not. It has to have velour seats. I think you have to dress as if you've been, and you can go anywhere, early 80s, so you can go as a new romantic or go George Michael, late 80s. I don't mind what the spectrum is. You have to be there's 80s music playing, and there are 80s Formula One cars there. And, it's that thing about you being a kid in the pit. So, I want to see that very first carbon fiber McLaren there. But I also want to see the two, that beautiful 1989 Ferrari that Mansell drove, the F189, the 639. I want to see that there. I want to see everything in between. I want to see blocky sponsorship, because at the beginning they're just whacking stickers on these cars. Well, they didn't really care. Some of the early Williams liveries are monuments to bad taste and a lack of art and proportion, but they're so good. That ICI box now, in retrospect, just a yellow trunk with ice. It's fantastic. I want to go there. I want to hear Duran Duran. I want to hear Spandau Ballet. I want to hear Soft Cell. I think there should be 80s food. So I think there could be, like, the really high end is Nouvelle Cuisine, where you literally get 3 peas on your plate as a starter. So
can I suggest you have to turn up with an item that was advertised on one of those cars that turned out to be utterly ridiculous or not that long lived, like some kind of printer or a fax machine, or maybe turn up with a Canon camera.
Yeah.
That's the thing with it. Actually, I love the idea that in the boot of your Granada, you actually have a Canon fax machine.
Yeah.
From that's how Bernie did all his deals, by fax, because they were written. I love the idea of that. Big telephones. I just think do that once a year, and have a bit of a celebrity race. Most of those cars had Cosworth engines. It'd be quite competitive. Or we could do a balance of performance equation, couldn't we?
Oh, that always ends well.
Yeah, that'd be entertaining.
So I reckon. So Finn, write these down. That's almost certainly going to have to happen. Anyone that's got a few old F1 cars lying around, if your name might be Bernard, then please send them to Brands Hatch, and Manish will look after them. We'll have a lovely party.
Yeah. I used to have a fax machine in the boot of my car.
Did you?
A working one?
Just about. It didn't do many pages very fast, but we found some way of getting it sort of rigged. You've got to fiddle with the cables and the connections and stuff. But
that's really James Bond. Did you have one of those phones that you could drive it with from the outside as well?
We tried that, but it didn't work. Funnily enough,
that's a shame. And what would your car event be, Chris?
Isn't it obvious?
Yeah, Friday.
It's Glastonbury for cars.
Oh God, okay.
Oh, nice.
Glastonbury for cars, which is this week. When Glastonbury started, it was like all these things, like the first Festival of Speed. It was, should you have a go at that? And then it became what it was. So why do I like? Because I probably wouldn't go to Glastonbury because it feels like quite hard work, sort of camping and walking a million miles in sort of 3 days or so. I know you can do it differently, but so it would have to be something that's over 3 days, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would have to be somewhere. I kind of think Thruxton is a really good place to do it because it's rural. There's lots of space around it. I'd want to have a bit of a track day. I'd also want to have some racing, perhaps some historic racing and some newer stuff. And I'd also want to have a bit of the Hay Festival in there as well. Books and people talking about stuff.
Well, that'd be nice.
People talking about stuff.
Intense.
Intense and, with sort of deck chairs and people selling fresh potatoes at the door and stuff like that and beetroot and...
This is quite a random event. So we've got people pounding around Thruxton in a Formula One car and there's a lad selling spuds on the gate on the way in.
I think the world's been crying out for this because there's something slightly lovely and I don't really care what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
We're aware of that.
And I told you I'm not cool and I'm a cultural Philistine. And I sort of
cars and spuds.
And I sort of think
it's good. It's good.
Cars and spuds. Right, that's done.
And I sort of think
I love it.
What we didn't, because it's not a car event. It's way beyond that. And I think it's a happy, lovely place where all the things that we love talking about would be possible and doing and so forth. And your mates would want to come. And then suddenly in 5-10 years time, anybody who thinks about the car and motoring and what it means to us, they don't want to be there.
He's still laughing.
It's fucking great.
Brilliant.
We should do it.
I think it's obvious.
How about this then? You can invite a green You can invite a green 250 GTO and cross out the word David and put Maris in front of it, and then you got all bases covered, haven't you?
Yeah.
But you can only serve potatoes. I mean, there's so many varieties of potato food.
Spuds.
I think you'd have to do it in the spring, maybe late spring, because you'd want Jersey Royals.
Robert Denton would love it.
You want Jersey
Robert
Royals.
Denton would love it. Right, okay, here we go. Neil Clifford.
Okay. I can't beat that, Cars and Spuds, to be honest. That's a winner. That's happening. Okay, mine is called... It's for charity, my event. I haven't worked out what charity, but it's called 5 and Stay Alive. Okay, so you've got to buy a car for $5,000.
Yeah.
you've got to go to these 5 circuits in a day and do 5 laps. And the person that gets to the end, which is at Knock Hill, is the winner. So you start at Brands Hatch. You then go to Thruxton. You then go to Silverstone. You then go to Anglesey. And you finish at Knock Hill. And you've got to do all of that in a day. You've got to do 5 laps. So you've got to start at, I don't know, you do it the solstice.
Yeah.
You do it the longest day of the year.
All in daylight.
That's right, all in daylight. Last Saturday, could be a bit of a traffic jam around Thruxton at the solstice, but
Do
never
that one
mind.
last.
Well, no, because you've got to get up. You've got to get up north. You've got to get to Knock Hill.
You're not doing that in a day, but it's
You
it's
would.
nice
I think you could do it in a day. You'd start. You'd be as soon as the sunrise. Off you go at Brands Hatch. 5 laps. What's that? 10 minutes or 20 minutes? I don't bloody know. And then you got to get to Knock Hill before sunset. And you all pay £1,000, and all that money goes to charity.
I'm just looking at my map here.
And you can only eat potatoes.
Anglesey to Knock Hill. That's got to be 6
salad.
hours.
No. Well, I don't even know where Knock Hill is.
It's
Edinburgh.
Edinburgh.
Other side of the bridge from Edinburgh.
That'd be 4 hours in your Ford Focus. It's
Believable.
200,000 miles on the clock.
I'm not very good at car events, if I'm honest with you. I enjoy my cars with a few friends or go to a race meeting. So big events I can't really do. That's why I like Friday. It wasn't very big. You could talk to people and didn't feel scared. The best car event I've been to that probably squared most with the way I like enjoying cars was I can't remember if it was a lemons race or a chump car race. So there's 2 types of very cheap racing in America. Americans do so many things better than us. We think we know all about motor cars and racing, but we don't really. They have 2 series for very cheap racing cars, deliberately cheap. So you're not allowed to spend more than, I think, a couple of $1,000s. And they're either called lemons, get it? Not Le Mans, but lemons.
That's good.
Or they're called, not champ car, it's called chump car. And I think it was chump car. And I've got the sticker on one of my old crash helmets that says chump car. It's absolutely fantastic. And you turn up and it's just a paddock full of like-minded idiots. It's just fun. There's some really good driving. There's some really bad driving. But I never had more fun. And I love the idea that it was a celebration of not wanton destruction of cars at all, but you're using up stuff that otherwise would have just been thrown on the pile. I had the best conversations. I saw lots of absurd things. In the middle of the night, I can remember thinking to myself, I can just cut off a large part of the IR by going across the grass, thinking I was the cleverest man alive, until I realised I was just driving through the tracks of the other people that had been doing it for the last 2 hours. And at the end of it, someone gave me some moonshine to drink, and I put it in one of those rubberized, those sort of cardboard cups that has like rubbery finish to it. And I put the moonshine in the cup and I mixed it with some Gatorade because that's all there was to mix it with. And I left it there and played a bit of baseball as we were winding down the paddock. And I turned around and it had just melted its way out of the cup. It had just gone straight through the cup.
Safety tip, everyone.
Yeah. So I think that's I'd love to do something like that in the UK. I'd like to do something that was a deliberately cheap racing fun thing. Go to a circuit where it's, go to Snet or Anglesey. Go to the fringes.
You could do that on the farm.
Yeah.
Once you've done the hay, you could do it on the fields when we cut the hay.
I just think I think you never have more fun than driving in a car that you might think is probably dead at the end of that day. Not because you're just being utterly ridiculous, but I love it.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
Our producer has just produced, we'll put it up properly, a little map.
Yes.
He's just worked out, he's done this while we've been talking, he sent it to us. And he's done the road times, like right now, to all of those circuits.
Yeah.
It's doable.
Yeah, it's doable.
It's doable. We'll put it up on the thing.
I can do it on the solstice.
Theoretically doable.
Can I just say, I'm looking forward to seeing that film of you, Neil, receiving tuition from Chris. It was very, very successful. on your part, because when you stepped into that 992 RS that we had the lovely chance of driving, your instruction to me was brilliant. It was
Well, the problem was the blue lights kept flashing, which was telling you that someone was trying to overtake you and you were ignoring it.
I just needs to go faster. I just needs to go faster.
Stop winding him up. We don't. So it's early on a Tuesday morning. Right, here we go.
I'll tell you what, he's bloody quick though, Cooper.
He is.
I arrived, I had just about enough time to put my helmet on. Did we do 3 fast laps?
We did. Some of the facial expressions you pulled are worth Instagramming.
Well,
It was.
if you're
I've
not
never been
used
in
to it round there, one of those things is just absurd.
I went home and said to my wife, he's not full of shit, you know. He can actually
He's
drive.
not full of shit. He's very, very quick. It also twitched
on that note,
big time.
I've not mentioned how the McMurtry was there as well. So there were some quite fast cars, and then the McMurtry rolled out, running at less than half performance, and that was fairly staggering as well. That's another film. You'll see that at some point. Here we go. It's the summer solstice. The Druids have awarded you £35,000, something to enjoy at Thruxton, the Druids' favourite circuit, after Brands Hatch, OBS, and something to enjoy early morning drives.
And potatoes.
The best kind. Don't give it away. Finn, we need to edit out the cars and spuds because someone will nick it. They will. They will.
No, it's mine. It's
Liberty.
ours.
Those fuckers at Liberty will come along and take it from us. And something to enjoy. At 4:51 British summertime on 21st of June, and the following days is you offer 4 Druid friends a lift home to Anglesey. Okay, so the track car is 2 seats. The non-track car is 4 seats. So I just need to. I hadn't read that properly. So while I adjust my offerings, I'll go to Chris Cooper.
I've got 2 bangers.
Go on.
Right now, we'll put this up properly. There is a 1988, a beautiful 1988 Land Rover Defender 90, which I reckon will go for about 10 grand. Beautiful, that sort of, whatever that blue is there. We'll show the picture properly. A stunning thing. And then the other one I found was a 2001 TVR Tuscan.
Oh,
2001 TVR Tuscan, which I reckon will probably go. That's got a couple of days to go. That'll go for probably 20 grand, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just stunning. So I think
is that a car and classic auction or is that
both car and classic auction? So they've probably both been done by the time this comes out, and I might have bought one or both of them. That's what I do.
Neil Clifford.
Oh, God. Car and Classic. Your go-to place to buy lovely cars. Okay, right. How much we got? 35
grand.
Okay. You got me all excited, Chris, last week about the Ford Focus Mark 1. And I've never owned one. So I've now got that as an itch, like a bad dose of eczema. So one's going to have to go and buy myself, and these things never show up, do they? Well, but a Ford Focus ST, only 950 miles, 2004, in Rotherham, for it's like 5 grand or something. It hasn't got a price. We'll put it up. It'll have a price. I think it was like 5 grand. So then I've got quite a lot of money from a track car, and I didn't think I'd be boring this week because I'm normally bored. I'm Lotus Elise, I'm Porsche Boxster. You know, I play it safe. And to trump the TVR, 1997 Marcos Mantis.
Oh,
Spider.
Which engine?
4.6 V8 for sale.
They are stunning.
Nothing's going to go wrong with that.
No, they're really good. They were really good race cars about that period as well. They're mega.
Yeah, I remember it at Le Mans.
Look at that.
Look at
Yeah.
that. I don't even know where my camera is on this.
Yeah, no,
bloody-
it's good.
No, it's working.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is,
Look at that.
yeah,
And, you know,
that's the car. That's a forgotten car. That is
That's
very,
a
very
forgotten
good.
car.
Yeah.
And it was borderline pretty with a touch of ugliness mixed
Yeah, it
in.
was sort of, why would
Wasn't
you
it?
get that rather than TVR? But now that is so much cooler.
Well, to use your analogy or the way you described the Conti T, how you'd walk around and it got better. With the Marcos, you'd look at the front, oh, that's good. You get around the back and go, oh, they did that to it again.
Yeah. And this one's got like an extra big knobby body kit and everything. And it's green. And it's definitely not going to go wrong. And it's 56,000 miles. And I haven't got a price on that one
And
either.
I bore you again with the weird piece of trivia I've got about that. That Jem Marsh, the founder of Marcos Cars, was one of my father's cousins, and I never knew.
He was from down your way. They were Somerset, weren't they?
I never knew.
Chapter Mallet.
I think it's a brilliant looking thing. So what's going to go wrong? Ford Focus, Marcos Mantis Spider.
Right, Cooper's putting his shoes on because he's got to go into a meeting
Put
now.
my shoes on because I've got to go to the board meeting in a second.
Let's go. So what's the second car? You got Ford Focus, Marcos
Ford
Mantis.
Focus, yeah.
Manish, what are you going for?
I had very difficult time deciphering how we actually do this, okay, as you know, on the group chat. So I've unfortunately picked two cars that have both been sold, but they were sold on Car and Classic, and they are really rather wonderful. Number one, this MX-5 Rocketeer with a Jaguar V6 engine, 286 horsepower, went for £14,000 last year. It's got every mod you can imagine on this.
Oh, Neil Clifford. Neil Clifford, respond to that, please.
I think it's a perfect choice, Manish.
So do I.
I think that for it. And the other one, I couldn't believe this, 11,500 quid in 2023, a 2005 CLK 55 AMG convertible. The C209 went for 11,500 pounds. And look at this, you and your Druids in that convertible.
Ooh.
What is it?
CLK 55.
CLK 55 convertible.
Yeah.
Right, so we're confirming that this app. I've had 3 messages in the last day. Actually, we were saying that app is a disaster. It's going to cost me my marriage. So just be careful with the Car and Classic app. So I've gone. I've slightly misread it. I got it the wrong way around. So my track car's got 4 seats, but my car for the early morning blast. My track car is this. It's a manual E92 M3.
Yeah.
It's had the ball bearing sign. It's clear glass. It's Imola red. I mean, what a car! 15 grand for that.
Yeah.
I think they really are
That's
coming in.
better than any car that's available new for sale now.
They're gorgeous.
E92,
And then for me,
M3.
I hate to say it, these. I just think on the solstice,
I
I'd
saw
wake
that
up.
one. I saw that one.
Targa.
Very nearly.
It's the cabriolet, so it's the really awkward roof, 3.6 manual. It's got the quad headlights from America, and look at that growler on the front there.
It's got a bit of a comb over, isn't it? That
Oh,
Bit.
more than a comb
I did
over.
see that one. Yeah. That's
So
a good
before
one.
we run away, could you please, Chris Cooper, nominate one piece of music? Just say something random before you go.
It's got to be Bill Withers, A Lovely Day, because Friday
There we go.
was a lovely day.
There we go. Right, you're excused, Mr. Cooper, if you need to go. So we can now carry on with the last 3 bits of music.
I'm going to pack.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you very much, Chris.
Bye.
What are you going to go for, Neil Clifford?
I'm going thither.
Oh, I listened to them recently.
Oh, a very, very underloved 90s, 80s band. Really.
Great looking album covers as well.
Yeah, Dusk. It's a great album.
Yeah.
And they're all good. I mean, listen to True Happiness This Way Lies, the first one. That puts a shiver up your spine. But I'm going Slow Emotional Replay.
Oh,
Yeah, it's nice. Turn that up loud.
very, very good. Manish?
I'm going to go for the B side of the Planet Earth single from Duran Duran. Came out in 1981, and it's called Late Bar. And it's such an up song. It's got a great chorus. La 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 late bar. La 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 la. That's it. It's a great song.
I had a bit of Guns N' Roses afternoon last week, and I have to say that Mr. Brownstone turned up very loud from Appetite for Destruction is a pretty good tune. In fact, it's one of the very, very best driving tunes out there. Thank you very much for joining us this week. we've enjoyed your company. We look forward to boring you again next week. I'd also like to announce that our July Spectacular, the 25th of July, at the Clapham Grand, where I used to behave as a drunken nightclub person in the late 1990s, we have a special guest making a cameo. His name is John McGuinness. You've heard him on this podcast, and I think you'll agree that he can't be on the rostrum for the whole time because his stories are too good and will probably get arrested. But he will spend some time up there dazzling you with his verbal tricks. So,
It's lovely.
John McGuinness, 25th of July, with the rest of us. Have a look at tickets. There's still a few left. See you soon. Bye-bye.